Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the official Nerd Talk channel. We are back for another episode of Originals versus Remakes. I'm Mind of a Nerd, aka Tyler, joined by my co-host AJ Reacts to, and today we are giving you an episode on Halloween because today is October 31st. It's my Christmas. I tell you, the spooky season has unfortunately concluded, but this is the day where it all culminates. And today we are talking about one bona fide classic and a very poor attempt to recapture it. Spoiler alert. And but we are very excited to do so. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the original 1978 classic, The Night He Came Home. Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, and tells the story of Michael Myers escaping his psych hospital and his doctor going on the hunt for him as Michael Myers stumbles across the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois. So, the first time I saw Halloween, I want to airball it and say the seventh grade. That we're gonna airball it and say the seventh grade. So around when I was 14 or 15 years old, this movie is one of the movies that put slashers on the map. It's not the movie because that movie goes to Black Christmas because Black Christmas came out before this movie. But it is one of the like pillars of slasher horrors, and it's iconic, and man, it'll never get old. We had Black Christmas, this, and Alien back to back to back. And Alien is really what just like, was like, no, horror is no joke. But, this movie, man, it's so good, right off the bat, the score by John Carpenter, it's like the same two notes for like every track. And it's so great. It's like, in terms of horror scores, you have like this, The Shining, and I don't know, The Omen. Like those three scores are just like god tier scores. The Exorcist is
Go.
like right there, like it's chilling at the bottom. And he's always been a legendary composer because he did the score for The Thing. He did the scores for the sequel trilogy, the Blumhouse trilogy, and that's probably the best thing to come out of that set of movies. To be honest, the movie is very like, I don't want to say low budget because they did have a very small budget. But like you could tell there's not a lot of money there. Like an example is when Annie's death, they reused the same audio of her yelling twice in the car and you can hear it. There's also like a really kind of funny jump cut when he hits the window with his hand. It jumps, so you see it. And of course they use the same track from the score a lot. But I mean it works. The kills here, they're very tame, but I feel like that's what horror was in the 70s. That's just kind of what it was. It was very tame. You weren't seeing things like I said, the chest burster just a year later. You weren't seeing things like that in 1970, and it's
Yeah.
just it wasn't really needed because this movie isn't about the kills, which unfortunately is something that the franchise completely forgot about after this movie. But it's not about the kills; it's about the terror and the horror and the atmosphere. But yeah, it's a classic. There's some bad things about it, but this is one of those movies where some of the cheesy things to it they add to the charm. That's just
Yes.
how it is.
Definitely.
And it's
Definitely.
one it's always on. If you're a slasher fan, I really don't see how you're not watching this movie every October season. But to each their own. AJ, what are your thoughts on the original classic?
You covered a lot of my thoughts on this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, let alone favorite horror slash slasher movies. Um, Michael Myers is an icon as far as horror villains, and he's like one of the fundamental players in the slasher genre. So, you know, watching this movie, like I've tried to watch it every year. And it's a fun time. I would say the pacing is a little like could be a little tighter, but I think it kind of adds to the eeriness of the tone. Michael Myers is not always on screen, but you kind of always feel his presence while watching the movie. And that's one of the charms about this movie. Like it has that eerie tone, and it for to me it always feels like a very fall type movie. Like it has that fall atmosphere in my opinion. Going back to like the characters and the dialogue and things like that, it can be a little rough sometimes, but like you said, it adds to the charm of the film, and it's kind of like it's dated, but in a way that it's authentic. It feels authentic. So, like I said, this is one of my favorite films of all time. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I try to watch it every year. And I don't want to really talk about the next thing, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Um, side note, this has nothing to do with this movie, but the ending of this movie births one of the greatest lines in cinematic history in the next movie. I shot him 6 times. I
I shot him
shot him
six
in the
times.
heart.
I shot him in the eye. I shot him 6 times.
He's not human.
Sam Loomis, bro.
Rest
He's
in
another
peace,
star of this
Donald
movie. Like
Pleasance.
we kind of glazed past that character, but he's another star of this movie, and really the star of this like franchise, man. Like
Rest in peace, Donald
shout out to
Pleasance.
this man. Yeah, rest in peace, man.
All right. Moving on to the remake titled Halloween once again, directed by Rob Zombie. Can't believe I'm uttering that name on a video of ours, but here we are. And it tells the story. Essentially, I'm gonna like sum it up. Essentially, it tells like the origin story of Michael Myers, which sounds so goofy, but it tells the origin story of Michael Myers and how he became the man known as the Shape. Which
Mm.
I don't even think they reference him as the Shape.
They
In
don't.
this. So I saw this movie for the first time, I think in 2020 when I think this was the next OVR I was going to do back, when I had my channel. I think this was one of the ones that I was going to do. And I watched this movie for the first time. And I remember not really liking it. I was kind of just like, that was kind of weird, but whatever. I ended up not even making that OVR, but so I rewatched it last year because on Halloween I went through all from like 1 to Rob Zombie's 2. I went through all of those on Halloween day. I made a big thing out of it. So I ended up watching it again. And this watch I didn't rewatch it for this video because I kind of remember everything. Um that watch, it kind of opened my eyes to some of the things that work, but ultimately I don't really like this movie like that. It I don't think it's bad. There are horrendous things in it, no question. But I wouldn't classify this as bad. I think it's wasted potential in my eyes. That's kind of how I view this movie. Do I like it? I like things in it, like without question, but would I go out of my way to watch this movie? No, never. There is about 4 or 5 Halloween movies in this franchise, both good and bad, that I would watch over this movie. But let's start talking about the positive. Michael Myers, adult Michael Myers, is great. His look is great. His physique is awesome. And the mask looks fantastic. And the kills and practical effects, they're great. They work. They're pretty good in this movie. The score is fine. He didn't really mess with the Halloween theme, which I'm glad he did. I'm glad we didn't get like a heavy metal version of the Halloween theme. He realized that he doesn't need to go and change that because it's one of the greatest themes ever made. The idea of this movie, I can respect. I like the idea of going back and telling the backstory of Michael Myers. Now, do I think it was necessary? No. Do I think this movie's necessary? No. But it's just like I said with the RoboCop remake. If I were going to remake Halloween, this is how I would do it. I would go back and explore, you know, the mindset of Michael Myers and what made him him. Now some would say that what makes Halloween scary is that we don't know anything about Michael Myers, which I agree, but wholeheartedly. Don't hear me say that that's not true. That is 1000% true. But like I said, if you were going to tell a remade story, this is how I would do it. I would give you a peek behind the curtain, if you will, of Michael Myers. I think that could have been interesting. Malcolm McDowell, he's good. I think he's good. Is he written well? No, but he's good. I think he's easily like the best actor in the movie. The whole thing with his backstory, once they get past the by the Sherry Moon Zombie in this movie is horrendous. She is not a good actress at all. Once they get past the whole family thing and they get into like the sessions with him and Loomis, I feel like that was just a missed opportunity. I feel like that should have been most of the movie to where it was like I feel like the movie could have started where he's being dropped off at the hospital saying like, "Oh yeah, he killed his stepsister or stepsister, I don't remember." You could have just like said like, "Yeah, he killed his sister and now he's in this hospital." And the first half of the movie is Loomis trying to get into his mind and see what's going on. Would that have been a little boring and slow? I mean, it depends on how you write it, but of course Rob Zombie can't write anything to save his life. So, I mean, I don't know. Um but yeah, it's just a wasted opportunity to me. Something that I actually kind of like is like they tried to give her characters like her and her friends. They tried to give them a little bit more depth to where they're just not like one note people like in the original. But in the end, the acting is just not great anyway. So it's kind of just like I commend the effort, but and then we get to the third act. It's got some entertaining kills in there, sure, but it just goes on and on and on and on, especially if you're watching the director's cut, which luckily I didn't, but this guy did. Um it's just it's disappointing to me, and it's just a movie that could have been really cool, especially with like the edge that Rob Zombie has, but ultimately you pick the wrong guy and what you're left with is just, I guess a poor man's version of one of the greatest movies of all time. AJ, what are your thoughts on the remake?
So I've seen this movie like years ago. Like I think maybe like I watched the original and then I watched this and the second one. I didn't remember anything about the Rob Zombies either one of those movies. So I rewatched it today and I was dreading it by the way, but I was like I got to do this. We got to do this OVR. So I got to suffer through it. Um this movie is bad to me. I'm sorry. For the majority of this film, I was really like hating everything. Like I was like, why I hate this. Um there are like three things that I like in this movie. I do like Michael Myers' aesthetic. I like his aesthetic. I like the way he looks. I like the way he carries himself, how big he is, his mask, all that. It's great. I do the way the movie is filmed is fine. I think that's pretty well done. There are some elements of shaky cam, but like it kind of adds to the intensity of some certain sequences and scenes. So I'm cool with that. And Malcolm McDowell is pretty good. Everything else, I don't really care for the characters. I don't care for the the writing of certain situations. There's a scene in the director's cut that's just like honestly gross. And it's just like it felt like Rob Zombie enjoyed doing that. Like it felt
Yeah,
like he was filming this with a smile on his face, like, oh yeah, get in there, yeah. And I'm
yeah,
like, that's how it felt. And I was just like, this is not a worthy adaptation of one of my favorite movies of all time.
I can
So
I can relate that to the breakfast scene. Like he's just sitting
that
there like,
too.
oh, this dialogue is so good.
It's like, oh
Oh my
yeah,
god, I
like
love
say
it. We
this.
killed it.
Say this.
God.
This will get them. Trying to be like really shocking and really like it's just kind of in bad taste. It's not funny. It's not fun. Like I don't know. But like Tyler said, after the first like hour and some change, the last 40 minutes of this movie, it changes and it shifts and it's more enjoyable than the first half. But the the whole thing with them going into trying to get into Michael's mind and trying to show us like his backstory so we can relate to his character, for me that's not something I've ever needed for Michael Myers. People will be like, "Oh, AJ, you don't say that same thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Like, you like that?" I'm like, "Not quite." It's the whole thing with that is I like the reason why the parents are so upset, the way they show that, not humanizing Freddy Krueger. Back to this movie, that's kind of what they do, and even in that scene with on the director's cut, in the prison, Michael is like kind of the hero. He saves this woman from being attacked. And I'm like, what are we doing here? This is not Michael Myers. It's not like something that he does, like, you know. And then like they had this whole thing with where they'll show his face and then he has like these different masks with paper mache. I think he was trying to do something creative with that. Some people might like that. I didn't care for it. Overall, this movie is just not good to me. There are a couple things that are, admirable about it, but other than that, y'all can keep this one. For me, this one is not good.
Moving on to the similarities between the two, and right off the bat, the meat of these movies is essentially the same. You have Michael Myers going through Haddonfield and killing teenagers, and then he eventually gets to Laurie, and Loomis is trying to get him back.
Yeah, some of the
Um,
kills are the same too,
yep,
with the knife
they do
and
the
stabbing the
Bob kill.
the Bob
That
kill. Yep,
I don't know if he is Bob in the remake, but
he
um,
plays the Bob character. I don't know that
oh
if
yeah,
that's his name in the movie, but it's her
um,
friend's boyfriend.
the scene where he puts the sheet over his head to pretend to be the boyfriend is the exact same.
Which is funny though. We were just talking about this off screen, but Michael Myers is like a giant in this movie. I'm like, how do you not notice that your boyfriend grew like 7 inches? Like this man is so huge. Anyway,
He
I
comes
digress.
back. Oh, hi baby, where did you? Hello there.
Oh shoot.
The the Halloween theme is the same. Like I said, he didn't change it. Thank everything holy. The look is pretty much the same. It's the same mask, but it looks different. But
It's
it's
like a
for the
lot
better.
more worn, seems like. It's
Yeah,
like has cracks
because
in it.
he had it buried under the house.
Hmm. Yeah.
It
And I like
reminds
that.
me of what they did with the 2018 mask.
Yeah,
Only
definitely.
I prefer that mask because it quite literally looks like the original but older. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
like that. Um, the main goals of the characters are pretty much the same. Loomis, like I said, he's just trying to make sure that Michael doesn't get out and cause havoc. Of course, he miserably fails at that. Um, I think that's pretty much it for the similarities because there's actually a good bit of differences. So let's get into those. And obviously, like we talked about, the beginning of the remake is totally different.
Totally.
Um,
Totally. Totally.
that woman is taking over my mind now. Um, it's indeed totally different from the original because it adds all the backstory with Michael Myers, which, like we said, it's not needed and it's honestly horrendous. Um, Also, the ending of the remake is different from the original. So, In the original, Loomis comes up, he finds Michael and Laurie, shoots him. He shot him 6 times. He
Shot him
shoots
six
him,
times.
and he falls off the balcony, which is it is oh it's shot in a way that is so 1970s. He gets shot, boom, boom, boom,
Yes. Doom,
boom.
doom, doom. Ow.
Every shot
you might
effective.
you might as well say no.
The best part, again, we keep talking about Halloween 2. The best part is in 2 when he disappears and he leaves a Looney Tune silhouette in the grass. That's the best part about that. In in the remake, they kind of do the ending where he shoots him and then they grab him and then he kind of gets out and goes after Laurie again.
Mhm.
And then I think Laurie kills him. I
Yeah.
say kills because obviously he's not dead, but like they make it look like she killed him.
Yeah.
And then she screams for the 25th hundredth time
I
in
I
the
think
movie.
I think they thought we liked that
I
because the way that they did it in the end, in like the final sequence, it's just like scream after scream, and it's like cuts of
Yeah,
her scream, like different cuts of her screaming, and like zoom ins and zoom outs, and like just like playing with the editing, but she's like screaming in every layer of the editing, and it's just like we don't like this, stop. And then the
shut
quick
up.
credits, and then the credits roll, and like right at the beginning of the credits you hear a scream like echoing, like we don't like this, bro, this is not.
It's
Stop it.
ridiculous. I'm telling you, basically 80% of her dialogue is screaming. Like the entire third act, she's just screaming. It's
Yeah,
like that's not good.
no, it's not.
Granted, Laurie does a lot of that in the remake too, but the difference is Jamie Lee Curtis has the lungs of a scream queen. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just how it is. So her screaming like that, it doesn't sound like as annoying. I guess it's a stupid ass rebuttal, but it makes sense. It just is. Also, this is a difference. The kills in the remake are much more like in your face and gruesome. They're
Yes.
very like he grabs somebody, like throws them against the wall, and like
Hmm.
it's intense. I will say that he nailed the intensity with the kills.
I
And then the
agree, and
remake,
I was just gonna say I feel like Michael is like more aggressive in the
mhm,
remake, like he'll bust through a door or
yeah,
like bust through a window, and you see his hands and like face coming through the window, like. And
yeah,
I just feel like he's a lot more aggressive in the original. He's like a lot more calm. He is like killing people still, but he's like, I'll get there when I get there type of thing. This man in the
he's
remake is like he's ruthless. And
yeah,
he also has a
it's
different aesthetic, especially like with his mask off. Um, he has like the long hair, you can see it up there, and over covering his face, he kind of looks like who is it? Samara Samara in the ring. But yeah.
it's almost on the level of Jason in the remake, the way they did that, which is probably they
Yeah,
probably watched this and
definitely.
were like, oh yeah, we're gonna make Jason like this, which was for the better.
Mhm.
And then in the original, the kills are kind of just like stab slash, but again, it's like we said, it's not about the kills.
It's not.
And personally, you look at the original, it's like this is kind of baby Michael Myers because I think he's only like he has to be young, right? Because of the whole thing with him being Laurie's brother.
Yeah,
Even
I
though
think
like
yeah, they retcon that, but still, yeah, he's young, but like yeah, he's about I think he's about the same age here in both movies.
yeah, and then you get this Michael Myers is kind of just whatever, and then you get to Halloween 2018 where this dude is like ripping jaws open and
Yeah.
stabbing people through the neck. It's
And they do that obviously because they could do more now
yeah,
than they could back then, but yeah, like
yeah.
he
Think about
upgraded
that.
for sure.
That was a Michael Myers that'd been locked up for 40 years, bro.
He had some stuff bottled up. He was ready. He was ready when he got out.
Um, Also, Loomis is very different. in the remake. So in the remake, he's kind of a jerk.
Hmm.
He is.
He
He's
is.
just a
He is.
jerk. And then the second one, it's even worse. But he's just a jerk, man. In the original,
Kind of remind me of
Loomis,
Halloween 5.
he is like the hero. He is, you want to see him succeed. He's also got a sense of humor to him in the original.
Hmm.
Where I
Hmm.
love the scene in the original where he scares the kids. That scene is hilarious. It's so funny.
Yeah, there's a killer around here, but we're gonna just play some pranks on some kids.
Between them.
I would say this movie has, or the remake has, a different tone to it. Um,
Hmm.
the original, like we said, it has like this eerie tone, but it's like not in your face. Um, but in the remake, it just, like, I feel like the Rob Zombie was trying so hard to make it like intense and hardcore. That's the word that comes to mind. Like, he was really trying to make it hardcore in a lot of elements, and that didn't work for me personally.
Hmm.
It might work for some folks, but it didn't work for me personally. Um, and another thing about the remake, it's like overtly sexual. Like,
Oh yeah.
there is like sex and stuff in the original, where
Hmm.
but it's like more alluded to. Like, it's not like as in your face. The remake has some stuff that's in your face, and the director's cut. Anyway, yeah,
Makes
that's
you
just
feel
like,
gross
yeah,
watching
it
it. It's
does.
like
It's like I gotta go take a shower after watching this movie, you know.
some of us
But
like watching the Saw movie. It's like, ew,
right,
I'm not eating bacon for a week after watching
right,
Saw 2. Or
yeah,
no,
but
3. That was 3
yeah,
with the pig
3.
fat.
Hmm.
Ugh, ugh, that's nasty.
But yeah,
Also, like one last difference is that they show Michael Myers is, I guess he's a stepdad, and
yeah,
then
stepdad.
his mom,
Hmm.
which, well, no, they show them in the original, right? When
If
they
they
find them at the
did,
house.
they didn't focus on them.
No, they don't focus on them, but they're in there briefly, but they
Hmm.
play a much bigger role here, you
Yes,
know,
especially the mom.
unfortunately. Unfortunately, because of who plays her. Um Moving on to the definitive version, and obviously it's Rob
It's
Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah,
Of course it's Rob
obviously.
Zombie's Halloween. No,
We just
no.
been painting it in a beautiful light
Yeah.
this entire
Yeah,
time,
right?
for 40 minutes, 30
When
35
you look
minutes.
when you look at it this way,
Right.
no. Of
It's
course
actually
it
not
is.
that bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good. No. Obviously the original classic 1978 Halloween is the definitive version. One of the greatest movies of all time, one of the best slashers of all time that defined the genre. And it takes, a really good movie to make it that, like, oh yeah, I'm watching this every year, and it defines a holiday. Like,
Yes.
how many movies define a holiday? You gotta think about that. As
Yeah.
goofy as that sounds, you know how good your movie has to be to define a holiday?
Right.
You
You're
know,
right.
poor St. Patrick's Day over there only has Leprechaun. Think about that.
You gonna steal me gold.
Side note, the part in the first movie where he's riding the tricycle and he plows through the fence and you just see the
You,
whole of him.
you see the Looney Tunes leprechaun shaped hole.
the the greatest thing that franchise ever did. Anywho, that is gonna do it for this episode of Originals versus Remakes. I hope you guys enjoyed the spooky season OVRs that we did.
Hmm. Happy Halloween,
We
y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Halloween. Eat some candy, but check it first. Because there's some weirdos out there. Watch as many horror movies as you can. Do a marathon or 2 or 3. Why not? Be bold. Um, the next OVR will be in the month of November. For AJ's birthday, we are doing a OVR on Sleeping Beauty or Maleficent, however you look at it. We'll be looking at the original Sleeping Beauty, that Disney classic. And then we will be talking about possibly the best Disney live action remake, Maleficent. Very excited about that. And if you guys are, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell for all notifications for future Nerd Talk live streams and videos. And we will see you on the next episode of Originals versus Remakes. Everybody, happy Halloween.
Peace.